just didn't seem real. I was a bit spun out by it all. But
Talk of record scores were doing the rounds at Belmont, with conditions once again near perfect for low scoring. Mark Johnson was just concerned about his own, and he picked up another stroke on the second hole of the day. On the back of an opening round 66, teenager Nick Flanagan was out to carve up his home course again, but he had to settle for a one-over round 73. Brad McIntosh couldn't match his opening round blitz either, but he still picked up one stroke today to sit 7 under overall. So too Newcastle's James Nitties, who was another to begin 6 under, but when he fell foul off the tee on his second hole of the day, he was in trouble. But a great out and a subsequent approach shot helped him save par and end up 7 under overall. A runner-up at the World Juniors, Richard Moore, was doing battle with the Belmont Greens. Defending champ Scott Strange went even closer on the same hole, but the cup wasn't having any of it. If all the pressure was on overnight leader Marcus Both, he didn't show it, calmly knocking up at 2 under 70, but he still slipped back on the leaderboard. Englishman Nick Doherty continues to impress as well, picking up another 4 shots today, and adding to his opening round 66, he's at 10 under. It wasn't so much a case of all guns blazing, but Newcastle did have the better of the opening exchanges. However, when shots kept coming and going without result, you began to get the feeling it was going to be another one of those nights. It's not often Bob Catlin is caught out, but when the Pride lured the keeper away from goal, they looked certain to score. That was until Andy Roberts bobbed up. More chances came and went for United as it remained scoreless at half-time. In the second term, Asala Massey continued his one-man mission to break the deadlock. For John Bonavolia, it was just the woodwork that denied him. Time was running out. In fact, it was in injury time when finally it fell United's way. Bonavolia hitting home the match winner as his coach now approaches contract talks this week.
If I've had 2 good years in the club and then 13 games into the next season you're supposed to be a cripple or a bad coach, well, that speaks for itself.
The patrol cars rolled out of Newcastle Police Station just before midnight last night after 30 officers of a special operations group received a simple mission statement.
To protect those people and look after those people that want to come into Newcastle and enjoy the nightlife.
They set about achieving that aim immediately, patrolling all licensed premises in Newcastle's CBD. A brawl at the 24-hour McDonald's restaurant on King Street 2 weeks ago was the trigger for a heavy presence there too. At times it looked like police outnumbered late-night revellers as they sought to act as a deterrent to and crack down on unruly behaviour. Over Friday and Saturday night, police made 14 arrests and laid 18 charges, including offensive behaviour, assault and breaches of the peace. Most importantly though, officers ordered 126 move-on directions, preventing crowd build-up. Inspector Scarr says he's extremely pleased with the results of the 2-night operation, and he's warning if the antisocial behaviour in the CBD continues, his Special Operations Group will just keep coming back.
Take heed and take notice of what we've done, and quite simply this, we will be back if needed.
The group will review the results early next week, and Inspector Scarr says he may consider employing the same kind of operations group to Maitland and Lake Macquarie if necessary. Meantime, the school holidays end this long weekend, and police are out in force targeting the Big Four as people head home. Speeding, fatigue, drink driving and seatbelts. They're hoping motorists have been shocked into submission after the horrific Christmas-New Year holiday road toll. Catherine Turner, NBN News.
Even before the trial, there were calls against an experimental kicking rule which allows a defending player to merely ground the ball in goal and get the restart. And things haven't changed after seeing it in action last night. Tigers halfback Craig Fielder used an old favourite to set up first points, with Matt Sears also lending a hand to get Lee Murphy over. While new rules were getting a run, some old ones got a start as well. At the end of the first quarter though, Newcastle had worked its way in front after Mark, who scored earlier, his centre partner Tamana Tahu finished off for one of his own and secured an 8-6 lead. The rain kept falling, the Tigers kept scoring, with Field leading the charge, setting up 2 quick tries for an 18-8 buffer. Hughes bagged his second to keep Newcastle in touch, but Ken McGuinness crossed for 2 of his own, stretching the Tigers' lead to 18. Newcastle replied with 2 late tries, both to Bill Peden, but paid the price for only kicking 1 conversion all night, Wests finishing 8 points in front.
Well, this is a dream ever since I was a little kid. I've always wanted to do this.
The building at Garden Suburbs Public School had only been repainted around 12 months ago. Today it was scarred by fire.
Unfortunately, schools are always targets for vandals, particularly this time of the year.
Police believe that petrol was used as an accelerant. Someone set the veranda alight shortly after 1 a.m.
It is believed that from the amount of accelerant used, that the person has actually caused injuries to himself.
While the inside of the building wasn't affected by the blaze, the damage bill is still estimated to be as high as $10,000. And a house in Blacksmiths Beach was also ravaged by fire last night. Forensic police scoured the property today in an effort to establish how the blaze began. It's believed to have been deliberately lit. The rear bedroom was completely destroyed and the rest of the house suffered smoke and water damage. It was unoccupied at the time. Adam Harper, NBN News.
Finding a park at John Hunter Hospital is time-consuming, and with around 5,000 cars visiting the site each day, it's no wonder traffic congestion is a problem. In an attempt to solve this problem, Hunter Health is handing over management of all car parks to King's Parking.
On Thursday this week, we'll reduce the traffic flow at the front door by 70% by altering the traffic conditions along the lines of recommended by King's Parking.
Visitors and staff parking in the Rankin Park car park will also be charged a fee of $3 from March 5. Hunter Health has, however, promised prices won't rise for at least 12 months.
King's Parking are our agent. They act on our instructions. They collect fees in a different manner through a different traffic flow system, but essentially we're still in control of the fees, who gets charged and how often they get charged.
It's all part of a long-term plan by Hunter Health to improve access to facility, as well as provide additional car parking.
To build a further 150 car park deck straight at the front of John Hunter with a disabled access lift, which is much needed, well overdue, and plans will be going into Newcastle City Council in the very near future for that.
Tani Carlisle, NBN News.
police investigation got underway last August after concerns from the Hunter Area Health Service and Healthcare Complaints Commission. The alleged behaviour of 2 male nurses was under question. Detectives from Operation Skene today charging a 47-year-old Aberdare man and 42-year-old Pecolban man who worked at the facility. The pair will now face court on more than 20 charges between them, including aggravated acts of indecency, assault and abduction, all alleged to have been carried out over a 2-year period. Police say the charges involve approximately 12 victims from the Allendale facility, all elderly males and all dementia sufferers. The families of all the victims have been notified.
We want to assure other residents and other families of residents at Allendale that there is no evidence to suggest they're involved.
Both men have been released on conditional bail and will appear before Cessnock Local Court on the 26th of February. Helen Kapelos, NBN News.
White police markings along Nelson Bay Road, burnt out vegetation, car parts strewn across the grass. Just some of the fragments left behind at the scene of a car accident which killed a 15-year-old girl. Police say the 17-year-old male driver lost control of a Holden Commodore at about 1 o'clock this morning before rolling the car and slamming into a tree. The girl from Chittaway Bay on the Central Coast was thrown from the vehicle, landing in a creek. She died at the scene. The driver and 3 other males, aged 16, 17 and 20, managed to scramble free before the car burst into flames. Police are at a loss to explain why the driver lost control on this long straight stretch of road, but they do believe excessive speed was a factor and no one in the car was wearing a seatbelt. The burnt-out car is now part of the police investigation. It was reported stolen from Raymond Terrace just hours before the crash. Police say tragedy often strikes when young people get behind the wheel and think they're invincible.
Look, we're all young once, and it just shows the tragedy of these sort of incidents where young people steal a car.
One backseat passenger remains in hospital with a broken leg. The others escaped with little or no injury. The unlicensed driver was refused bail this morning after being charged with a range of offences, including dangerous driving causing death. Catherine Turner, NBN News.
It's been revealed that 18 Australians have died as a result of deep vein thrombosis or economy class syndrome. Coroners have found that 14 of those deaths, dating back to 1992, have occurred while flying or within 2 hours of landing. But a Newcastle-based professor says a simple blood test by a GP can identify your level of risk.
I asked to be tested for the factor V Leiden factor, and then he will be able to tell you whether you carry that tendency, and then you can take appropriate preventive measures.
Measures like moving around the cabin as much as possible, exercising the calf muscles, wearing support stockings and drinking plenty of water.
First identified in the London Blitz when people were in air raid shelters and were sitting in deck chairs with that band of wood against the back of their knee, and that were a group that tended to clot.
More than 2,000 cases have now been documented for one of Australia's largest ever legal actions, but Professor Turner believes the airlines aren't entirely to blame.
I don't know whether it's the airline's total responsibility to be responsible for all the health risks that everybody is taking.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Lake Macquarie Council is upgrading Cohiba and Wallsend roads, with part of the plan a left-hand turning lane into Waratah Street. Council says it'll improve safety, but residents saying their street is already used as a shortcut through to Burwood Road argue otherwise.
Present conditions are dangerous as it is, and a left-hand turning lane would only elevate those all the more.
They've signed a petition worried about the safety of a street narrowed by parked cars, which features a park and plenty of local children.
And we're hoping that they'll stop the works, not go ahead, and really look at the conditions of the street and listen to the people that live in this street.
Councillors and staff met with the residents this afternoon, but at this stage council seems set on its turning lane. However,
we're having the traffic committee currently look at that intersection and talking to the residents to see whether there's any additional facilities that we can put in there that will address their specific concerns and improve the safety another step.
Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
The couch is about as much as Matthew Gidley will tackle for the next few weeks. Despite the pain, he's taking the break in his stride.
You've got to play him, everyone plays him, and when every club cops their injuries out of him.
The break is just above the same ankle he damaged in 1997, but Gidley doesn't think that'll be a problem. Ligament tears will though, and he'll have scans in Sydney tomorrow to check just how bad it is.
If the ligament between the two bones in your leg is damaged, I think that'll mean surgery. Well, they'll have to screw it or do something like that to it, which will mean, a couple months out.
Gidley's injury was about the only low point of what was an encouraging hit-out against Parramatta and secures Sean Rudder the 5/8 role for the opening match of the season against the Northern Eagles. Robbie O'Davis continues to show he's nearing his best in just 2 games back at fullback. He's also expected to shake off a minor hand injury he picked up against Parra. Meanwhile, the club officially launched its season at Spears Point Park at Lake Macquarie late yesterday. In searing heat, thousands turned out for the event to see the top side parade their new jumpers for the 2001 season, which also has plenty of new faces.
After leaving his hometown to try his luck in England, Chad Mansley was back in Newcastle colours today, knowing he has 12 weeks to create a good impression and stay in them.
Just hopefully, given the chance in any grade, I can perform and put the Newcastle shirt on, and I'll be very happy.
The talented striker hasn't been included in the squad to meet Auckland this Friday, but another youngster has in 18-year-old Mitchell Johnson. The attacking midfielder looks set to make his top-grade debut after impressing Lee Sterry.
He'll be playing some part on Friday night in the top grade, there's no doubt about that.
There's doubt, though, over the inclusion of others, with 3 players to be omitted, and Sterry less than impressed by the commitment of some of the seniors.
Yeah, there's a few missing this week. They'll be notable on Friday night, and we'll go from there.
To rugby league, and after helping convince the NRL to drop controversial new game rules, Michael Hagan now has to come up with a convincing formula for next week's season opener against the Northern Eagles. With Gidley and McDougall missing and doubts over just how available Kennedy and Parsons will be, it's not easy.
Obviously, once we get Adam McDougall and Matthew Gidley and people like that back on deck, that will certainly help our cause, but I think we have the nucleus of enough good people between round 1 and round 6 to make an impact on the competition.
The team will be named on Tuesday. Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
Just checking the mail is a major ordeal for Stephen Naylor. But in about 12 months' time, his knee should be as good as new, thanks to new cutting-edge surgery.
To take a piece of joint lining about the size of a rice granule, and we sent that to Sweden, where over a period of 4 to 5 weeks in the laboratory, they grew about 10 to 20 million cells.
The new cells were implanted in Stephen's knee about a month ago and will regenerate to form new cartilage lining.
Whereas in the past we've replaced area of damaged joint lining with metal or plastic, this gives a true biological resurfacing with living tissue which is of an identical structure to his own joint lining.
The constant pain I was in was constant and very bad, and this operation was a way to stop the pain.
Stephen, who is an ex-policeman, hasn't been able to work since he was injured on the job around 10 years ago.
My workmate and I were driving in King Street, Newcastle, when we observed 2 people fighting. We stopped, broke up the fight, and the crowd that was really having a good time watching attacked us and put the boot into me.
The procedure, which has an 80 to 90% success rate, can only be done on localised arthritic knee problems at this stage. It's hoped the surgery will be developed to help more people, especially sports people like footballers who are prone to knee injuries. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
The Scott family's quest to help their severely disabled son John continued in Newcastle Coroner's Court today at the inquest into his death. The 13-year-old died of chronic epilepsy at John Hunter Hospital last March while he was placed in crisis accommodation by docs at Stockton Centre. A coroner today found it was his quality of life and not the cause of death that was the main issue.
We just want to know why he never came out of that situation, which was supposed to be temporary and just an emergency situation.
The inquest also acknowledged the family's efforts to cater for John's needs, which required 24-hour supervision, including 5 nappy changes a day for his double incontinence and constant seizures. Whilst handing down his findings, Coroner Michael Morahan delivered a stinging criticism to the notable absence of the Department of Community Services. He said docs were invited to give evidence at the inquest but failed to do so, and as a result were not mindful of their public responsibility.
It's a disgrace that in the 21st century the New South Wales and federal government still choose to ignore the plight of profoundly disabled children in our community.
The main recommendation calling on more funding of special facilities for severely disabled children.
They have Ronald McDonald houses for parents who can't look after their kids with cancer. I don't see what the difference is.
The great white shark took an aerial view of his latest project from the air first, fresh off the course and after an impressive opening round at his Greg Norman International in Sydney. Once down at ground level, he surveyed the 18-hole course he's designed at Becolban in the Hunter Valley.
I enjoy the aspect of building golf courses. I enjoy that probably more than anything else I do at this stage in my life, outside of playing golf, I might add.
The golf course will be just one part of the vintage, which will include a golf club and 482-lot residential community. The installation of a $10 million water pipeline in January to irrigate the Hunter Valley's 85 vineyards was certainly a bonus, given the amount of water required for a championship golf course.
It's been a great opportunity for us to get the water into the golf course. We need to be able to keep the maintenance to the level that we expect this golf course to be maintained at.
As for why the shark chose this part of the world,
when you think about you're only 2 hours from a city the size of Sydney of 4 million people, to be out here in countryside like this, there's not too many places in the world you have that opportunity.
the project should be completed by March next year. Catherine Turner, NBN News.
It was commonplace last year for Ben Kennedy to play with pain-killing injections, and while the troublesome ankle isn't 100%, the big back rower says he won't need anything to help him run out on Sunday night.
It's certainly good enough to play, mate. It's probably not yet 100%, but I don't think it will be for a while, so I'm just going to have to play with it, and hopefully it gets better as the season goes on.
With injury ruling out Adam McDougall and Matthew Gidley, the backline includes Justin Ryder on the wing, while in the forwards, Clinton O'Brien and Glenn Grief will start in the front row, with Josh Perry and Troy Fletcher the backup on the bench. Andrew Johns, meanwhile, will train with Canterbury goal-kicking legend Daryl Halligan tomorrow to ensure his boot is on target, but the build-up will focus on the half-backs.
I know during the week there's going to be a lot of build-up about me and Brett playing together, but against each other, and probably whoever comes out best will win the game, but I think it's up front, it's where it's going to be won.
Hooker Danny Baderis agrees. He's one of 3 nights expected to play the full 80 minutes.
The longer the game goes on, and a lot more open it'll get, which will be only good for the crowd and good for the game.
But the coach says these days everyone has a big role to play.
The fact that forwards are spending so much more time out there and working so hard in defence that we need outside backs to come in and give them a hand more so than they have done in other years, so we'll be certainly expecting that from our blokes.
And the Knights board will tonight discuss what course of action it will take after being fined $73,800 for breaching the salary cap.
While most realise that exercise and good diet are the best insurance against heart attack, the condition is still far too prevalent. 4 years ago, Qantas installed portable defibrillators on board its jets, saving lives in the process. Today, heart transplant victim Fiona Coote helped kickstart an Australian first in Newcastle, a campaign to have defibrillators in public places. Paramedic Alan Playford and the Neighbourhood First Aid Group has teamed up with several Lions clubs to try and convince community organisations to raise money for the $4,500 machines. The defibrillators talk users through the steps. Promoters claiming they're safe to use.
Not only will it save lives, but it will actually cut down the amount of damage that heart attack does. When a heart attack occurs, the oxygen deprivation to the brain is what causes the brain damage.
Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
When the for sale signs went up on this block of land at Nelson Bay, the locals who've used it as a public reserve for generations were shocked. Owned by Port Stephens Council, the land off Christmas Bush Avenue has never been developed and the people of the area want it to stay that way.
It's very, very valuable to the people around here and it serves a community need and a purpose. And we believe it should be kept that way.
Every day we come and kick a ball in the park and that's how we've met all the neighbours.
The group has approached local councillors who will inspect the site next Monday before deciding whether the land, which is surplus to its needs, will still be sold.
2 years ago made a call to the council inquiring about the land, whether it was privately owned and they said no, it was actually a council reserve that wouldn't be sold.
Well, they should just forget it. They haven't mowed it for years. We do all that. The guy that lives there now, he made it, give it a hell of a good time, you know. Yeah, it's pretty crook.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.